You're a young man, and
What?
you're in an honored position to be able to learn.
Yeah, Gabriel. Yes, I can see you.
Do you want to
To
get
me,
banned? Do you want to get in trouble?
not really.
No.
Well, then don't be
Okay.
disrespectful.
Uh,
All right.
how? Wait. Let me think of a
How can
question.
I get bitches?
You can get women to be interested in you by developing your spiritual powers and capacities. You're basically just a boy. You've had no experiences. You haven't looked deep into yourself. You don't radiate presence. And you think if you make
That's
yourself
true.
look like a, some kind of TikTok idiot that you're going to attract women, you're just going to attract idiotic women who are getting around town quite a bit. So that's not going to do you any
That's
good.
true. Okay.
Very good point.
Spending time with me is going to make you a lady magnet, to put it bluntly. If you can put these
Are you
teachings
a
into
lady magnet?
practice,
Are you a lady magnet?
don't worry about that.
All right.
How? Yo, no, I'm not doing with money. I'll do it with money. I'll do it with money.
What are you going to do with money?
I'm gonna
Not
buy.
pussy.
No, no.
You're gonna buy Snickers and take a little trip and make a little TikTok video. What's the point in that? There's no need for money. You
Yo,
need to learn how to
some of
take
these
care of
Gabriels.
yourself, and you need to learn how to mature yourself.
Yo, no, man.
I have a question for you, Mark.
You know who wants you to
Yes.
worry? You know who wants you to be thinking about making money as a young man? Is the crypto scammers and Andrew Tate and whoever it might be that's going to trick you into you giving them your money.
Bro, I actually do, bro. I buy Andrew Tate's calls, bro.
Well, I don't want to bully you, but I don't recommend it.
Okay, thank you, bro.
Wait,
But like,
I have a question for you, Mark.
But did you really
Anything's
recommend
going to
it?
help you. Well, I want to say this before we move on to the question. Anything's going to help you. You start going to the bowling alley every week, that's going to help you. Anything that you do is going to help you. So, just because something helps you doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just helps you. Anything you're getting engaged with life is going to help you in some way.
yeah, I get it, bro. Like, but I pay like 50 euros every month, $50 I think it is, every month. Like, but my return of investment is very, very high, bro. Like, I get 1,000x the money back, just because of this course. Like, I think it helped me.
Well, I don't believe that, but if you want to make a document to prove that, you can do it. But that's what everybody's saying, isn't it? That's what all the TikTok financial influencers are saying. Look at all the money I'm making. So you send me some money too because I'll help you make money. So I don't know about that, but anyways, let's go to the next question.
How would you combine your spiritual life with your physical life? How can, basically, as you said, focusing on your spiritual life would make your physical essence better?
Anyways, making money's not going to do anything for you. What do you want to be, Jay Leno? You want to be a car collector? You want to get facial injections? I mean, what are you going to do with the money? There's nothing for you to do except
For me, it's just freedom.
dream up a story for your life. Well, you have to learn how to live before you can value freedom. You're going to have all the money in the world and you're just going to be, stuck in the same problems that you're stuck in now. Only you're going to maybe be doing that in a different place. So the person who asked about combining their physical life and spiritual life, think a little bit more deeply about that and get a little bit more specific because I don't know what you're talking about. Go ahead, Dean.
What is freedom? I was going to ask, what is freedom then?
Well,
Freedom.
freedom is very present moment oriented or now oriented. Where'd that little guy, that good looking young man go? I was keeping my eye on him.
Bro, my camera turned off.
When you
Sadly.
when you are able to be with what's happening now totally without seeking for something else or trying to avoid something that's happening now, that's where you're going to get your freedom. So that's most important. That's the most important thing for you to learn, is how to be in that and with that and in that way.
So it's basically it's part of yourself that you didn't.
Oh, I have a question.
You lose all your freedom. You lose all your freedom if you don't know how to not chase after something and how to not avoid something. So there's degrees of freedom. You can develop freedom, or freedom diminishes when you become addicted. So you could be a millionaire, but you're an addict, and usually millionaires are addicted to things, whether it's cocaine or alcohol or, you know, whatever it might be. Women.
I think money amplifies who you are, but I don't see it as a bad thing.
That's not a good way to think about it.
No,
Personally,
if you
that's
have
what I think.
money, you can buy better food, which is much healthier for you. You can literally just like buy things that can help you. It depends on how you use the money.
Well, this is the answer to the guy about the body and the mind. The most important is the mind. Your body is just like a sack of shit. Your body is vulnerable and temporary and gonna get sick and gonna go through old age and gonna go through death. You have to be a little bit nihilistic about the body. The body is totally hopeless.
Super.
Even if you get your body super healthy, then you're running around and you're doing Instagram reels and you got a bunch of shallow people around you telling you how beautiful and great you are, and then you get a headache and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you've got a brain tumor, buddy. Or you're walking outside and a tree branch falls on your head and now you're permanently physically disabled for the rest of your life. So you got to work on the mind more than the body. But sometimes we can use the body to work on the mind. So that's also very good. But if you're doing it in the wrong way, you're going to get the wrong results. You're not going to get the higher results. I mean, you think you want to be the Trend Twins, or you want to be some steroid addict, you know, Instagram freak? No, you don't want to be those people, but kind of you're habituated to look up to those people because of how image focused you are, because of the lack of deep and meaningful experiences you've had. For most people, that's true. It's not true for everybody, of course.
I mean, that makes sense because your mind shifts your perspective that you have of yourself and of life.
But you're literally who you think you are. If you think you like, for example, if you think that you're a fitness athlete even though you're overweight, you're gonna act like it, and then you're gonna become more. Like if you think about it.
Yes.
Doesn't delusion only get you so far though?
You shouldn't. That's right, Dean. That's right. These kinds of thoughts don't get you anywhere. They're just platitudes for the ego to balance on. So what you actually have to do is you have to make your ego a real ego. For most young men, most of the people in this server, they don't have a real ego. They're TikTokers, they're YouTubers, they're self-improvementers, or whatever. They haven't had deep meaningful experiences in their life. And usually you have to be in community to have deep and meaningful experiences. That's why I was telling the guy, even if you go bowling every day or every week, you're going to start connecting with people and people who are more experienced than you. So you have to individuate yourself. And if you're just trying to individuate yourself by doing what everybody else is doing, then you're not really individuating yourself. You're just seeking a dream that you're never going to get. And so the point here is to try to wake up, and that's how you get into your meditation way.
I found that kind of community at my church actually, and that's kind of what helped me become more like that. But I realized something myself, is that since I became more distant in general from people, whether it be friends, family, etc., I've become more spiteful, more hateful, more egoic, with a broken ego, which has caused me to lose sense of who I am. And so I feel I'm quite certain that those with being with people who are authentic to themselves, I mean truly authentic to themselves, can help you be authentic to yourself, as long as everyone is, of course, present.
You got to get out of this dream of becoming Andrew Tate or becoming, whoever you think that's some kind of special person. That's not realistic, you know. You're, you know, looks maxing and money maxing and intellect maxing is just, you have to learn how to be yourself and to how to experience yourself more deeply. That's the most important thing you can do. You know, to look into yourself, into your direct experience without external involvements or stimuli. So take yourself on a walk and focus on your breathing, you know. But there's no idealism in it. There's no idealism for the ego. That's why some of those statements are kind of irrelevant, because you're creating this structure of ideals that don't actually match up with reality. You know, it's like ugly people trying to become an Instagram model or something like that. Or fat people trying to become Victoria's Secret models. It might work for a little bit, but eventually it's going to come back to the baseline, which is your direct experience or the society's, you know, general standards. So you have to learn how to be in relationship with your direct experience.
So you're telling to be like just to do what you actually want to do, like if somebody tells you must be like I just don't really get it, because what's bad about improving your intelligence or looks or like, you know, improving yourself financially?
It's okay. All that stuff is okay, but what we're talking about here is this is the mental gym. So this is when you practice meditation seriously. So you're not trying to go anywhere. You're just being more fully into your direct experience, but you're doing that naturally. You're taking responsibility for who you already are, taking responsibility for your experience as it already is, instead of trying to make it into something else. And that's very powerful for turning the wheel of how you get into the depression and the anxiety and the complex thinking that makes you very ripe for the worst among us, you know, or the people who just want to scam you, or people who are lacking in depth but present a lot of, you know, as if they're not.
Like, I'm gonna go to sleep, guys.
Oh, good night, bro.
Good night.
You know that. So that's it.
Take care.
Good night.
Okay. That's it.
This,
Oh, it's not in. Okay.
this does make me curious. How would you... Actually, no, I think I already know the answer to the question I was about to ask there. I was going to ask, how do you know when you found yourself? But you'll know because it's not finding yourself, it's more like remembering.
Yeah, that's right. Remembering and make it into a process rather than a thing that you find. So it's just the more that you get involved with that process, the more you're going to get the power out of it or the energy out of it. That's the most reliable way to self-improve that you have is yourself as you already are, looking at that and being with that in stillness. That's the best foundation, basically. And then it's just up to your luck or up to your, you know, your blessings or your circumstances, your karma, we can say it, of what happens to you. If you walk under a tree, it's totally possible that a tree branch could break off unexpectedly and hit you on your head and you'd be disabled for the rest of your life. You know, the people in Gaza didn't expect for their whole civilization to get wiped out. You know what I mean? So life just happens. Life just happens. So you have to, well, you can go deeper into your experience now. That's not about anything, not about anybody.
That makes sense.
I realize the real power, which I've come to realize, is knowing when to let go and when to hold on.
Yeah. So this is the main problem for the modern society and most of the young men on this server for sure, is that you didn't grow up properly. You weren't raised properly. You didn't have enough healthy attachment for your brain to develop properly as a human brain. And there's all kinds of issues that go along with that. And so now, you know, you don't have your capacity to discern where somebody's just trying to get your money or someone's actually trying to help you. You know, where someone's actually lost and trying to pretend to not be lost, or someone's actually not lost. You know, in anyways, we're not cyber soldiers, we're human beings. So you have to develop healthy attachment with somebody that you can connect with, someone that you can talk to, someone that you can practice with, someone that you can be in community with, not imaginary Andrew Tate. You know, it just doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work more than if you just started going to the gym every week, or, you know, maybe had a better relationship with your father.
To be honest, what's helped me is having a better relationship with God. And as a Christian, I mainly look up to Jesus as my inspiration. However, I mainly see it not as a goal that I can achieve, but mainly more like an ideal, rather than say what people would Andrew Tate. Because the thing is, though, that's very impersonal, and to me, my God is personal, and because of that, I believe that He'd want the best for me. So therefore, I'd want the best for me, and by that I mean what's true to me, because my God also knows what's true to me.
So this is the problem. This is the problem, Dean, of not being individuated. Because now, because we're not individuated, we have to be in conflict with Dean and his relationship with God and what he's saying and what he's thinking about. You see what I'm saying? Whereas when you're individuated, Dean can be doing Dean and you can be doing you, and you can communicate rather than debate. And so one of the very good ways, one of the very powerful ways you can individuate is by going deeper into your experience of the heart beating, of the body breathing, of suffering inside of yourself. You know, but when you make it into this contrived ego gimmick of meditating, actually I think it can, and it, you know, make more problems than it solves. When you try to go into meditation that way, is this concentration, you know, training the mind exercise. But actually to just go there and be with yourself, and then you can see, you know, if that's something that's you're going to be able to make use of, or that you want to learn more about, you know, how you want to approach that.
Okay, do you actually like meditate, right? Like, do you do the exercise of meditation?
1 second.
It doesn't really matter what anybody else does, and that's one of the big problems in the way that we form relationships online. You know, we're kind of a parasite of someone else's self, a parasite of someone else's ego, a parasite of someone else's interests, a parasite of someone else's identity. It doesn't matter what other people do when they're not with you. You see what I'm saying? It's irrelevant to you.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a very backwards and flipped up and weird way to be in community, or to kind of be seeking after community in this age of the internet, this internet age. And it happens all the time, where we're kind of looking for an identity to believe in, or to relate to, or to play ping pong with our identity and their identity. But that's more like a religious thing, or like trying to create a belief system of that other person. But like actually meditating or actually listening, it doesn't have anything to do with beliefs, either being for or against things. Because the moment that you're for or against something, you have to debate about it.
Okay, so meditation is not like a fixed thing that you, for example, like sitting still and focusing on.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not.
Exactly that, right?
Yeah, it's not. And so that's why I think that's, you know, kind of an insight that you brought up for me, Gabriel. That's why I think that it's very problematic when meditation is presented that way. You know, especially when we have like a broken modern culture.
Yeah.
Because people immediately try to grab onto that and fixate onto that and identify with that, and then it just becomes a confusion. So meditation shouldn't be confusing in any way. Because it's like a curiosity, it's like an exploration. It's like if you tried to formulate wandering in the woods as a 12-year-old boy. You know, that would just be ridiculous. That would be crazy. And so approaching meditation, it's also crazy to say, to describe it that way.
I heard in one of the meditations that because I still watch YouTube videos to help me meditate, like guided. And one of the women, she said that meditation is actually just allowing yourself to be and not anything else beyond that. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. But it's just what you practice. You know, you can go so deeply into this. It's like the power or the capacity of your mind or your brain is unlimited. It's like, how do you create, you know, how do you create full 5D CGI movies in your brain when you're sleeping? So, you know, all of that is you. All of that is the depth that you have access to. So you can go really, really deep into this meditation practice, but you thinking about it or having an understanding about it or having ideas about it, it's just, it's pretty much irrelevant. But we don't have much real context for our lives anymore because all of the context is in consumption and, you know, maybe disassociation, maybe that's too strong a word, but so that puts you in a situation where you're not familiar with context. You're not familiar with the practicality of what you're experiencing. You're just constantly grasping at it without any foundation of seeing simply, intuitively. It's like trading the intuition for consumption,
Like,
for the compulsion
yeah,
of
that's what I
consumption.
was gonna say, like through your intuition, like experiencing life through intuition.
Yeah,
Is that it?
yeah.
Okay.
And then when someone
What would
says,
be the purpose?
go ahead, Dean.
Apologies. I was meaning then, in that case, what would be the purpose of rationality? If the goal is if the intent is to be purely intuitive.
Well, I mean, if you're
Where
going
does
into your room to pray to Jesus or going into your closet to pray to Jesus, then, you know, your reasoning isn't relevant. You know, if you're going to become a carpenter's apprentice on a job site, your thoughts and opinions are irrelevant. And so the best training ground for your intuition and real reasoning is actually intuitive. Is your direct experience in where you already are right now.
Right, so reason is just my egoic experience, if I recall that correctly. Apologies if it's wrong.
Well, I don't rely on understanding. It's going back to that intuition or that openness. It's like the most foundational portion of my human intelligence is there in beating my heart and stopping cancer from forming. And in the gut. You know, actually, what do they say? They say, the neuroscientists, they say that the heart and the gut actually send a lot more information to the brain than they receive from the brain. You know, something like that. I don't really know what they're talking about, but so it's like we over prioritize our intellectual capacity or our thinking capacity, which is mostly impractical and irrelevant to most situations. And we over prioritize our unwillingness to listen to the experience of the heart or the experience of breathing or the experience of the body, and to just be there with that.
Right.
You know, and you can definitely apply that in prayer, you know, in meditative prayer, you know, and people like Thomas Merton and Meister Eckhart and, getting into contemplative Christianity, meditative Christianity.
Yeah, I see what you mean now. We put a lot more emphasis on our thinking rather than our being.
You're thinking, you got to see, you got to think of this from a wider perspective, a wider lens. How many people in America, for example, is it important what they think about things? And how much of the time is it important for what they think about things? Basically zero, basically 1%, basically nothing. They got a routine. You wake up, you go to work, you sleep, you pay your bills, that's it.
Yep.
So it's not about this extreme of thinking or not thinking, but more like how we fixate on this continuous importance on thoughts that aren't necessarily relevant to our direct experience. So like
That makes sense.
compulsive thinking at the workplace, or compulsive thinking when you're suffering, or compulsive thinking when you're feeling good. That's unnecessary.
Say how I have a compulsive thinking to question you.
Instead of just to experience, or just to, give it to God or whatever.
It does make me curious, however, is it wrong to be that way? And I'm not meaning about, say if you're anxious and we're overthinking. I was more so meaning, say, in curiosity, is there a distinction, or is it all just the same?
Well, I'd say for God, there's no right or wrong. So this is inclusive of God's position as well. God can't do wrong, right? So then there's no right either. So it's a paradigm shift.
That's how I see it with God.
Yeah.
I just see it as
So
close to God or far from God.
you being deeper in relationship with God is also you coming closer to that.
I think you froze, yeah.
Did I freeze?
No, he froze.
Am I frozen?
You're fine. I think.
Well, you never know with these kinds of things. You never really know what's going on. So.
Sorry, you were frozen there. I didn't know what you said.
Yeah, you got cut off.
Well, we can kind of be looking through a limited perspective and then trying to explain that perspective or add things onto that perspective is basically hopeless. And so if you want to get deeper into meditation or deeper into prayer, you're going beyond your own perspective, like opening yourself up to experiencing God, not believing in God. So that's theosis, or unity of divinity, going into these deeper experiences of receiving the light, receiving the experience of no good or bad.
Being aware of the Holy Spirit that dwells within you, as is said in Christianity.
Well, you have to be careful with that word Christianity as well, because American Christianity there's no such thing as American Christianity. Christianity is going back to Christ. No? It's going back to God.
Yes.
So, if you're going with that, Eastern Orthodox, Catholic, and all of these little ideas or thoughts that people share to you and say, well, the Catholics believe this, these people believe that.
Protestants.
Yeah, that's irrelevant to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of your religion. which is Christianity, not what the people nearby you are yapping about or have opinions about. So, you kind of have to, if you take that position of really being deep about Christianity, just like I've taken that position about being very deep about Buddhism, you have to kind of move out all of the humanness and the the perspectives and ideas that people have about things, and you actually have to have a little bit more reverence for the faith in Christ, which doesn't have anything to do with modern day Americans and their opinions on Catholicism. Which that might not be convenient for them, but that's the way that it is. So when you're talking about Christianity, you're talking about hundreds and more than 1,000 years of monks and devoted priests and practitioners and followers and all this stuff that you can't just bundle up into American Christianity. So you have to, I would say, be careful about that.
You're absolutely right.
You'll miss out on a lot of wisdom from different mystics and monks, Christian monks throughout the ages.
You're right there. And to be honest, I hadn't thought about it that way. I truly hadn't thought of it that way. But I also understand that when I first came to the faith, I always chose in my mind that I want to be sure that I choose, not by my own volition, not because someone else told me to or someone else convinced me to, or that someone else has pressured me to, whether it be by the church community, friends, family, etc. No, I want it to be by my choice.
Well, you have to understand, I mean, this is my perspective on it, being non-denominational, but when you're talking about God, it's a really profound notion, and it can't be encapsulated into human experience. So, my path, if I was a Christian, would be to get closer to God and experiencing God, which has nothing to do with normal life or normal ideas or normal ways of being or anything like that, So how deeply you can go into prayer and how deeply you can, sacrifice your own understanding to receive, God or the Holy Spirit or whatever, that's something you have to do on your own. They tend to not teach that or emphasize that or give training methodologies for that in American Christianity. I grew up a Trinitarian.
I didn't grow up with any faith, actually. My family were all atheist.
Yeah.
Or agnostic, but most atheist. And I'm the only one to be religious in my entire family in living memory.
Yeah.
Yes, there was influence from friends and from some of my friends, but I'd say that I still made a conscious choice in doing that. But you're right. My experience with God is mine and mine alone. There is no one that can tell me how to do it, and there's no kind of guide through doing that.
Well, you shouldn't see it that way also, because what you have to understand is that over these hundreds and hundreds of years, I mean, this is just how I approach my spiritual path. There's been many people like you that have devoted their whole life to being deeper in relationship with God. So, if I was me, then I would want to be around people like that, and I'd want to be around I'd want to hear what people like that had to say. That'd be very important to me and very informative on the path of being in deeper relationship with God. So you might like Thomas Merton. He was a modern day Christian monk, Christian mystic in America. He's pretty fantastic. Very deep thinker, very deep experience. Okay,
Yeah,
we
can
have,
I ask something?
yeah, Gabriel.
No, I was just gonna say that I very much believe in God, and personally, I don't really have religion. Um, but I wanted to ask, what do you think about people that, because you see this in religion all the time, that they just know that they their truth is the truth, and I just wanted to like have your perspective on that because I heard that my entire life coming from like all the religions that I either like churches that I went or just for a little bit or you know just like others that I stayed a few more times but it never stuck to me as like the ultimate truth, quote unquote. So what do you think? There's like a fixed truth for life and for the universe. What do you think?
I think that's a really good question. So the way that this is talked about and understood in Buddhism is specifically that there's like it's kind of like God. God is if God is real, then he's just there's only one God, right? There's not many gods. That's the perspective. But there's definitely many people, right? There's many different, and even in traditional Christianity, there's spirits, demons, and all kinds of different things. But the seeker's path So,
You
I mean, even Jesus, I mean, even think about Jesus. It's going to be, it's very weird, but Jesus is supposed to be literally the Son of God. And Jesus said, or God said, all right, Jesus, you're my baby boy. I love you to death. You are me. And you've got to go through the desert for 40 days and starve to death. And not just that, but the devil's going to come and mess with you. And you go through all that and you're successful. And not just that, but you're going to literally be crucified by a person or the people that you trusted most.
In fact, that reminds me of Jesus in the Garden of
Bethlehem.
Yeah, that's it. No, Gethsemane. That's what I said of it. And it was where he was crying to God the Father, and he was like, "If there's any other way, please." He also accepted that if it is your will, then so be it.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's the power of Jesus, and that's kind of what we have to live up to, or to kind of try to be like, and to take that humble pill that makes us a kind of a regretful person, a remorseful person, but someone who's really ready to keep moving forward because of their trust. It's because you can't, just like when it comes to American Christianity, and you've got all these people that say, I have no idea what Catholicism is, I have no idea what the history of Christianity is, but I've got the Bible and I'm really interested in God and believe in God. And now when I ask about Christianity and some random person at the church that I don't know says, oh, Catholics believe this and that, I just take that at the word, and then I keep going in my one particular way of going. So it's bigger than the word Christianity. Being a follower of Christ, being someone who wants to be in relationship with God, is not well represented by organized religion. You almost have to be fanatical to believe that it would somehow be represented by organized religion in general. That's not to say, don't go to church or be mistrustful of your friends, but just that you kind of have to empty yourself to look really deeply. I mean, empty yourself of other people's views as well.
It's a very difficult thing to do, because even from the day we were born, we were given other people's views. Our lives are full of conditioning.
Well, we should have been overwhelmed by other people's experiences. But because we are all growing up in castles and with all this privilege, and what I mean by that is just all this convenience, we were more like, in many cases, children are used as a dumping ground for the thoughts of the people who happen to be around them, their parents. Not to speak of all the horrible things that happen to children and all the lacking, all the neglect.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to be around groups of women as children. We're supposed to be around groups of men as children. We're supposed to be immersed in a emotionally regulated community that is actively involved in all kinds of practical engagement that's deeper and more practical than our thoughts about things. That's kind of what we need to develop a healthy brain that's actually in tune with reality, instead of just in tune with the thoughts or views, just so many different views. We're addicted to views in a certain kind of way. And it's just irrelevant. It's irrelevant for how we have a relationship with ourselves and with the real world, which is not based in views.
You think we choose it because it's easy?
Oh, it's
conditioning.
It's conditioning. It's just like habit. Mostly it's just habit that's been transmitted to us. Kind of like the trauma from your parents, or the trauma from your ethnic group or your societal group will be transmitted to you. Like look at what the Jews, let's talk about the Jews. Look at what the Jews are doing in Gaza. I mean, it's literally genocide in so many ways. I mean, you know, I'm not to get into politics, but Israel is like a major metropolitan city and, you know, has corporations and all this modern infrastructure and tons of modern weaponry and a massively well-trained army with all kinds of resources from the US and the governments. And Gaza is just, you know, kind of a third world country or second world country if you're being generous. So
Yeah, led by a ragtag bunch of militants that basically rule them with an iron fist.
well, whoever these people are, they certainly don't have, you know, missiles provided to them by the most technologically advanced government in the world. You know, so.
Oh yeah, but they do still have them supplied by a nearby neighbor. But regardless, I'm not going to delve into.
Well,
that.
this is the problem of politics, because any dead child is a genocide. You know, and we have to kind of be willing to give up politics to start dealing with our own experience in a deeper way.
Gaza genocided Israelites. They literally started the conflict by killing all the people that music festival.
1,600 people killed. I mean, that was a massacre. That's the truth. But violence does breed more violence, and I see the point that you're making as well, that it's conditioning and cultural. We can go
I mean, you don't have to go very far back to kind of question who needs to get a foot up their ass, the abusive parent or the misbehaving child. The parent needs to get a foot up their ass. So Israel is more powerful than the region known as Gaza. So Israel is more responsible for what's going on. And the reason that we can't accept that is because we believe in the efficacy of anger. We believe in the efficacy of greed. We believe in the efficacy of revenge and vengeance and punishment. But the truth is that nobody deserves to be punished. You don't help children by punishing them. And when you punish a child, you're punishing what what's been transmitted to them.
Honestly, I don't believe it's a war because there are more things onto this quote-unquote war that we're not aware of. Like the reasoning that, for example, Israel uses to like throw bombs onto civilians and kill kids. Like literally 20,000 kids have died in like a span of a few years. That is not like even justifiable. So it's 100% not because of one incident of Hamas or 2 incidents of Hamas. It's not because of that. Like the disparity is insane, so you can't really like make a point to like one side.
We can move on with the topic though, because I can tell that we're starting to digress.
Well, this is kind of on topic for a lot of people, that you're not involved. You're not individuated enough. You're not effective enough. You're not potent enough. You're not relevant enough to make much of an impact on this thing that you're emotionally stimulated by. You know, because we can't appropriate the anger and the suffering and the confusion and the reality of the situation in Gaza and Israel. Fundamentally, we don't know. And that's when we can have a discussion about it. That's when we can communicate about it. But that's not really what we want to do. We don't want for Not a Monk and Dean and Charlie to form a brain trust and then investigate to the best of our capacities the best information that we can find about what's been going on, and delineate out of that a mutual understanding. We're kind of at war with our own attachment to a particular view about it. And that attachment to a particular view about it is very rarely established in compassion or a wish for the suffering to end, but instead being frustrated or angry or confused, or wanting to be right about the topic that's, makes us ineffective in terms of our advocacy work, but also it just becomes another thing that gets us emotionally dysregulated. We're not in Gaza, we're not in Palestine, we weren't at the music festival. We didn't experience that suffering. So we have to be honest about that, about not knowing. And then we come back to the principles of how we approach what we're doing now, instead of getting into our own Israel-Palestine, Gaza conflict. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fair. Like personally, I do get really emotional because you can see it happening day by day, and you just
Right.
get really fucking angry over that shit.
Right.
I get it.
Well,
It's
let's-
a mess. It's a huge mess that I just don't know enough. You're right. I don't know enough to say much about this.
Well, you also can't understand it or comprehend it. And that's a part of what triggers people. You have no idea what it's like to be in a war zone. You have no idea what it's like to be in abject poverty, or to be in a terrorist state, or an open air prison, or to have threat, imagined or real from the people of the other side. You've never experienced anything like that at that level. To see literally buildings being shot down and exploded and destroyed in front of you. So anyways, we're not here to talk about politics.
Yeah, it's better if we just stop talking about this, to be honest.
Anybody's mind is gonna get changed for that, probably.
Don't take it personally. If you've seen it, you don't have to tell everybody that you've seen it, because you know that you've seen it. The only thing that you need to take personally is you, because that's what you have to deal with. Nobody else. Nobody's going to wipe your ass. Nobody's going to put money in your bank account. You're going to have to deal with this experience yourself.
Can you calm down with like the profanity?
Well, there's nothing more profane. There's nothing more profane than what's going on in Israel, Palestine. So let's move on.
Why do you care so much about a bunch of fucking Muslims?
Well, it's a good question, right? Why should we care about a bunch of fucking Muslims? It's a really good question. And the truth is that we're all human beings. I mean, if somebody says they're a Muslim, so what? Somebody says they're a Christian, so what? Somebody says that their child belongs to them, that their child is their possession, so what? What are we really going to do with our direct experience right now, instead of just perpetuating complicated thoughts about things? Because it's kind of that we've been manipulated or conditioned to be role-playing as philosophers, political leaders, social leaders, deep thinkers, and that role playing makes us very easily manipulated and makes us good for the algorithm. So this is to kind of step out of the algorithm of holding on to these views that don't actually relate to your direct experience here and now. And when you say that FRX, why do you care so much about those fucking Muslims? Aren't there beautiful Muslim women? You don't care about beautiful women? Aren't there beautiful Muslim men? You don't care about beautiful Muslim men? Aren't there beautiful Muslim fathers and mothers and beautiful Muslim children? So it's not to defend these ideas of should we or shouldn't we, or white or black, whatever. It's just to come back to our humanity and the intention of compassion. The intention of actually making a practical use of our direct experience, of what we have in front of us. Because many of the times when we talk about a lot of things, It's like we're trying to grasp into the air and make use of things that aren't there. You have to check back into
Okay,
our
honestly-
intention. Check back into
Okay.
the direct experience in your body, for example.
I agree this regarding like just like screaming at, let's say, a wall, when we're talking about people who are not really like to change their mind. But I do agree that we need to talk about these things, and also most importantly like share, because if you look back, right, 3 years ago the war was kind of the same. Like, it's not like it escalated a lot. Like 2 years ago the war was kind of the same. People were still dying in Gaza.
Well, let's hold on here.
Nowadays,
Let's
it's
hold
way
on
more
here.
propagated in social media and stuff. So
Let's hold on here.
because of this, right?
We're not getting into political. It's outside of the scope of what we're talking about here. Because it's a good idea. We like that idea to make someone else's thinking be different. But the amount of potency that it takes to actually shift someone else's thinking, the amount of generosity that it takes, and also the ripe conditions for that to happen are very rare and very uncommon. It's not just as easy as getting a like or a dislike on a YouTube video or on a TikTok video. So the deeper that we can listen, the deeper that we will ultimately be willing and able to share. But you have to work on transforming yourself in the deeper and deeper way before you should ever expect anybody else to listen to you in that way. And there's two different ways to be listened to. One is in terms of entertainment, and another is in terms of a kind of heart, a mutual trust. So let's say, for example, in terms of tribes. So it doesn't matter how much of a smart talking, deep thinking, research having black man that you are in the 1800s or whatever. Nobody cares what you have to say. Nobody believes anything because you're black. So in this kind of situation, we're all coming from different tribes. Each individual person is coming from a different tribe. And what that means is that unless you build a deep and meaningful relationship with those people, which takes a lot of time and energy, especially in a context like this of just being online, right? The Discord call, then there's an inherent bias in them that is tribalistic, separatist. So it doesn't matter how well you present your point, you're still the other. So we have to dissolve the separation inside of ourselves to be able to reach people in that way. And that includes dissolving the bias to make a change now about the way that the situation is. So you were talking about the past 3 years. Think of all the protests. Think of all the Greta Thunbergs. Think of all the people that have been screaming and yelling and self-immolating. You know, quite a few people self-immolated about Gaza. And what has changed? Netanyahu's smile has just gotten bigger and bigger. Or Hamas's frown, or whatever you want. But that's not the point. It's not to diminish what those people have done. It's for you to take responsibility for your direct experience right now. That's not in Gaza. That's not in a position, also not in a position where people are saying, hey, I want to hear your views about this. I want us to figure this out together. Like if we were a tribe, and the tribe has roles, so there's a daddy, there's a mommy, there's a waterman, there's a fireman, there's a medicine woman, etc. So we're sitting together and the medicine woman says this and the fireman says this, etc. That's a different situation. We're not in that situation. We're in a totally corrupt, unstable, disassociated, discombobulated, coming together of different tribes that don't know each other, don't trust each other, and are not asking for, this kind of deep sharing. So it's a lot of internal work. That's always the most valuable thing to do, is this internal meditative work of actually dropping your views, going more into the
Okay,
direct experience
So-
of
when
the
you say
belly.
this, when you say this, you mean that it's unfit for me. Like I live on the other side of the world from Gaza. I'm white. I'm not Muslim. I have nothing to do with Gaza and what's happening there. Do you think it's unfit for me to like share my views on, I don't know, Reddit, social media, share videos about what's happening over there, to try to make as little of an impact in changing the situation so that
It's a good idea. No, it's a good idea, but it's very often a lot more impractical than you're being led to believe. And so we're talking about two subjects here. One, we're talking about this meditative inquiry or going more deeply into your direct experience.
we're talking
And
about
another
a different topic.
is we're talking about the lack of efficacy in any kind of work that we do because it's disconnected from a deeper looking within ourselves. And that's just alluding to the potentiality to not waste energy and to also do more good work and not to discredit any of the work that we're doing. Because you may be, for example, spending all this time making Reddit posts and nobody might even be watching your stuff. Nobody might even be reading your stuff, right, at all. And yet you've become very impassioned about your work, right? And that has led you to become more frustrated, more greedy for there to be a change that you want there to be, and to be lost in more complicated thinking that's not allowing you to have a bigger and more consistent impact on your life that you would actually like to have if you sat down for a little bit and thought about it, or were a part of a community. Because it really all comes back to community. You know, they say no man is an island. So when we just try to figure all this stuff out on our own as like an independent modern man who's got, trying to get an apartment or has an apartment or whatever, that's kind of that's a disaster for actually being able to engage in a meaningful way, in a human way. This hyper-isolationalism,
Sure.
So it's a good idea to try to build community and to find people that you can talk with about this, but a lot of times that's just going in circles,
Yeah, most of the time it is. Especially because in social media, it's basically like an echo chamber when you're talking about politics.
Well, it's made to be like that. Social media is not made to help people reach each other. Social media is made to profit off of people's attention. That's what the algorithm is there for.
It is.
So the people that are boosted up to the top are not deep thinkers and people who are there to help or offer their consideration or whatever. They're people who, for whatever reason, go in line with the profit model of grabbing people's attention and keeping them coming back.
Here's an example of that. Hassan on Twitch. Hassan on Twitch, yeah. There's a great example of that. I would say he's absolutely an echo chamber when it comes to the left-wing politics.
Well, what you need to understand is that that's what war is about. Politics is based in war. Politics is not based on having a reasonable discussion about anything. It's fuck you, die. That's what politics is about. The left and the right are hiding behind a veil of fuck you, die. And, to varying degrees, they get a little bit more honest about it. But there's no kind of moderate, contemplative position that's en masse, waiting to be revealed when we take off the boundaries between the left and the right. So even someone like Charlie Kirk was more of a rage baiter than he was a open discussion, master. And that's also because many people are not educated enough to talk deeply about these topics. But where your intention is to win, then there's a gun underneath your belt at all times. allegorical, metaphorical, and in Charlie Kirk's case, a literal one that he got shot with.
Shame he didn't deserve to die.
Well, nobody deserves to die, but everybody does die, you know. That's how life goes. You know, and going around and doing that kind of work, you're asking for it. Just like, well, there you go. There are parallels between Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was asking for it. Charlie Kirk was asking for it because of the way that they did their business.
That's a fair point.
But,
You
you
can
know,
say the same for Trump and JFK as well.
sure.
You know, I remember this one thing that Hamza once said, is that the life you have is the life you deserve, or what you get is exactly what you deserve. And
Let's believe that.
yeah, I believe that. I believe that what you get, you deserve. Because that's what you've done, or what you haven't done, led up to that moment.
Well, we'll see what happens. Okay, Dean and Gabriel, it was great to talk with you guys.
You too, man.
Yeah, you're welcome to reach out anytime. Stay connected. If you're looking for some resources or anything ever comes up, I'm always around, all right?
Okay, thank you.
See ya.
I'm getting more into my mindfulness, but thank you again.
Yeah, take care.
Morning, Dr. Rob. I'm on cloud 9 down here about your Dharma trip to the lucky country. I'm excited to see if we click, of course, and the possibility of hanging out. It's just what the doctor ordered, that's for shiz. We won't cut any corners, and we'll give you a taste of the fair dinkum Aussie hospitality. We'll give it a burl at the very least. Put on the razzle dazzle, if you know the score, all the bells and whistles. I'm sure with a push in the right direction, it will be a roaring success. You're the real deal and a real crowd puller. So we can travel for a bit. I can teach you how to drive the manual out past the black stump in the blue van or the monk mobile. Dish up some tucker to wrap your laughing gear around. Maybe go see the outback, meet some true blue Aussies. It's lovely there in the spring. You'd be mad if you don't. Give me a call on the blower anytime, and I'll be stoked to put you in the right direction, or point you in the right direction, or come get ya from Melbourne down south. Anyway, happy days above and below. Good vibes and travel safe, and sending you lots of love from Australia, and yeah, offering up my place for Dharma, anything Dharma related really. I've got a good internet connection here, so I'm sure that's music to your ears. Anywho, I'll check your bags later. Bye.
So we still have a few spots available for the Australian Dharma trip. If you haven't already made a commitment to join for the Australia Dharma trip, there's still time. We'll be starting in Sydney and we'll be making our way across the lucky land of Down Under, concerned with the Dharma, concerned with awakening, and we have a few sponsors that are going to be hosting us, and it's going to be a really great time. By the time I leave Australia, I'm betting that I'll be a true blue Aussie. This is just random music that I don't have any particular affinity towards.
house, and there's a park right there. Dharma Talks, a nice big tree. And the bush is right there. And the bush is right there as well. So it's a very beautiful place. Oh, yeah. Lucky to have a studio, books and sewing. I do a bit of sewing. I might make you an app. That'd be cool. My desk right. Look where I do.
Write down everything how can I get this? Remove how? Remove can I?
And remove get. And there's your piece right there. You in the blue van. Donations. Here's the park that I was talking about. It's very, very pretty. Yeah, my little. Saw that. This is my. Hi, Kitty. Hello, darling. Hello, darling. Yeah, my spare room. And it's quite big. I mean, it's big for me. Like a tiny house, my kitchen, and bathroom. Then this is the second area, which is my area. Bedroom's got like a really old baker's oven in it. Blah, blah, blah. It's gonna be hot today. I'm weeding the garden at the moment. My shed made of doors.
Well, in a sense, we're all made of doors, and this is just a matter of opening the door to numberlessness. That's inclusive of all numbers. 1, 2, 0. Well, do we have any questions? Any sharing of experience? Anyone have anything important to share? We've got our documents here, so we might as well take a look. When at present you rely on the Dharma's three treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and community to carry out the path, you must not have such views as good, bad, like, dislike, cause, effect, is not, holding the precepts, breaking the precepts, and so forth. If you make these sorts of calculations, they are all delusions manifested by your own mind. You will not notice that the realm of objects arises from your own mind. It's a deep track. If you hold that no dharmas exist, it is also a delusion manifested by your own mind. So any view is just a delusion manifested by your mind. The perceptions of your own mind are all deluded thoughts that construct is and is not. If you say that the wisdom of the Buddhas surpasses all, it is also a delusion manifested by your own mind. One's own mind, in the manner of a sleight of hand, constructs both existence and non-existence, and is in turn deluded by them. The sutra says, if you rely on the Dharma body Buddha to cultivate the path, construct neither illusory sentient beings nor real sentient beings. Therefore, the Dharma realm is sameness, having neither gain nor loss. If you rely on the Dharma body Buddha to cultivate the path, do not seek nirvana. Why? Because Dharma is nirvana. How could you use nirvana to seek nirvana? Also, do not seek Dharma, because mind is the Dharma realm. How could you use the Dharma realm to seek the Dharma realm? If you wish to rectify the mind, neither fear dharmas nor seek dharmas. If you use the Dharma body Buddha to cultivate the path, your mind will be like stone, dark, unaware, unknowing, undiscerning, nonchalant about everything, like a stupid person. Why? Because Dharma lacks awareness and knowing. Because Dharma can give us fearlessness, it is a place of great peace. It is like someone who commits a mortal crime. He surely must be beheaded. But if it happens that his king grants him a pardon, he avoids the anxiety of a death sentence. Sentient beings are also like this. They commit the 10 evils and the 5 transgressions and must fall into a hell. But the Dharma king grants them a pardon of great quiescence, and so they avoid all their sins. If someone who is a good friend of the king ventures off to another locale, kills youths there, and is grabbed by local people who want to requite the injury, this person becomes fearful, for he has no one to rely upon. When he suddenly sees his great king, he obtains liberation. If someone breaks the precepts and commits murder, commits sexual crimes and thievery, and fears falling into a hell, when he sees his own Dharma king, he will then obtain liberation. What is the Dharma Body Buddha? Should just be suchness, evenness. In the Dharma of cultivating the path, the vital energy of those who obtain their understanding through the medium of the written word is weak. If one obtains his understanding from events, his vital energy will be robust. Those who see Dharma from the medium of events never lose mindfulness anywhere. When those whose understanding is from the medium of the written word encounter events, their eyes are beclouded. To discuss events from the point of view of the sutras and treatises is to be estranged from Dharma. Though one may chat about events and listen concerning events, it is not as potent as personally experiencing events with the body and mind. If someone's understanding that events are Dharma is deep, then worldly people will not be able to fathom him. Even if the cultivator of the path time and again has his belongings stolen by thieves, he will not have a mind of attachment and will not even be vexed. If he is time and again cursed and slandered by others, he will not be vexed. If one is like this, his mind of the path will gradually strengthen. It will accumulate over years without end until he spontaneously has no mind toward any disagreeable and agreeable thing. Therefore, he who is not bound up with events can be called the Bodhisattva of great power. If one wishes to make the mind of cultivating the path robust, he should send mind outside the boundaries of the norms. Starting to like this Bodhidharma guy. But it's something that's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to be subtle changes or changes into subtlety. So that quick fix that we're trying to get and that we do get through meditation is just a balm on the wound of the false notion of self that we are concerned with. That's why it's very auspicious and very ideal to be, living as the high-minded monastic or the deeply minded renunciate yogi person. So the non-duality presentations that we've become familiar with recently, they're just false flag events. They're waving a false flag, frankly. And it's not reliable. Question: what events are outside the boundaries of the norms? Answer: and this goes back to what we were saying, right, with this Dharma body Buddha. I don't want to get in trouble, so we're just going to keep reading. Question: what events are outside the boundaries of the norms? Answer: the spontaneously peaceful mind does not realize the understanding of the Mahayana or the Hinayana, does not produce the thought of enlightenment, even to the point of not wishing for the omniscience of a Buddha, does not honor the person who is accomplished in samadhi, does not disdain the person who is attached and craving, even to the point of not wishing for Buddha wisdom. The spontaneously peaceful mind. The spontaneously peaceful mind. If one does not grasp for understanding and does not seek wisdom, he will desire to avoid the delusions and confusions of the Dharma masters and Dhyana masters. If one can preserve mind and erect will, entertain no wish to be a worthy or a sage, not seek liberation, fear neither the cycle of birth and death nor the hells, and with no mind directly carry out his responsibilities, then for the first time he will bring to perfection a dull mind of norms. If one can see all the transformations of the worthies and sages due to their supernormal powers through hundreds of thousands of eons without producing a desirous mind, then this person will desire to avoid the deceptions and delusions of others. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But you couldn't, and you wouldn't, and you shouldn't. So leave it at that.
She wants to take ESL classes too. She wants to learn. Yeah, ESL class, how, let's say how much you want to write in, the visit, and make it a leg of what level you can start. I do already, but last 20 years ago. Đây cổ cũng bắt đầu. Nhưng mà có về suy nghĩ đi, nhưng mà nó có hai cái văn hóa rất là đối lập với nhau. Tất cả các đứa nhỏ mà lớn hơn nghĩa
get back to the easy stuff. Question, what is called correct and what is called false? Answer, having no mental discrimination is called correct, and having the mind interpret dharmas is called false. Having the mind interpret phenomena is called false. When you come to the point of being unaware of both false and correct, that for the first time can be called correct. The sutra says, those who abide in the correct path do not discriminate whether it is false or correct. Question, what are sharp abilities and dull abilities? Answer, he who, without relying on the teaching of a master, sees dharma from events is called one of sharp abilities. He who understands from the spoken teachings of a master is called one of dull abilities. In hearing the Dharma through the spoken teachings of a master, there are also levels of sharpness and dullness and ability. In hearing the master's words, if one is not attached to existence and yet does not seize non-existence, if one is not attached to characteristics and yet does not seize characteristiclessness, if one is not attached to arising and yet does not seize non-arising, he is a person of sharp abilities. To covet understanding and seize meanings, views such as is and is not, is the interpretation of meanings of the man of dull abilities. Fantastic. When the person of sharp abilities hears of the path, he does not produce the mind of the common man. He does not even produce the mind of the worthy or sage. Common and sagely are both excised. This is the hearing of the path of the man of sharp abilities. He cares not for material and sensual things, even to the point of not caring for a Buddha's enlightenment. If you care for a Buddha's enlightenment, then you will reject disturbance and seize quietude, reject stupidity and seize wisdom, reject the conditioned and seize the unconditioned. You will not be able to cut off duality and be unimpeded. This is a man of dull abilities. To do it in that way is to go beyond all common and sagely realms. The man of sharp abilities hears of the path without producing a covetous mind. He does not even produce right mindfulness and right reflection. He hears of the path without producing the mind of the hearer. He does not even produce the bodhisattva mind. The Bodhisattva takes the Dharma realm as his home and the four immeasurable minds as the locus of the precepts. All behavior to the end does not go outside of the Dharma realm mind. The Dharma realm mind is the mind of evenness, sameness. Why? Because the body is the Dharma realm. Even if you say and do all sorts of things, do a dance leap or a horse kick, none of them leaves or enters the Dharma realm. If you take the Dharma realm to enter the Dharma realm, then you are a stupid person. Because the Bodhisattva clearly sees the Dharma realm, he is said to have the purity of the Dharma eye. Because he does not see dharmas arising, abiding, or extinguishing, he is said to have the purity of the Dharma eye. As to the sutras saying that without extinguishing stupidity and craving, he gives rise to liberation, craving from the outset is not arising, so how could it now be extinguished? The stupid, craving one seeks internally, externally, and in between, but he can neither see nor apprehend stupidity and craving, even when he seeks in the 10 directions for them. There is not the slightest characteristic to be apprehended. Hence, it is unnecessary to extinguish them in order to seek liberation. Question. Worldly people apply themselves to various sorts of learning. Why do they fail to obtain the path? Answer. Because they see a self, they do not obtain the path. If they were able to avoid seeing a self, then they would obtain the path. Self means ego. The reason why the sage meets suffering without being sad and encounters pleasure without being happy is that he does not see a self. The reason why he has neither suffering nor pleasure is that he has lost self. When you attain to emptiness, even the self is lost. So what further thing can there be that is not lost? In the world, how many can there be who have lost self? If you can lose self, everything from the outset will be non-existent. The self arbitrarily produces calculations, and then one is affected by birth, aging, sickness, death, sadness, commiseration, suffering, defilements, cold, heat, wind, rain, and everything that is not in accord with one's wishes. These are all manifestations of false thought. In the manner of a magician's sleight of hand, departing to another birth and staying in this birth are not under the control of a self. Why? Arbitrarily, the ego of worldly people produce resistance and opposition, and they fail to acknowledge that departing and staying are not under the control of the ego. The defilements exist because of the grasping of the self, and from this springs departing and staying. If you know that departing and staying are not under the control of the self, then for you, mine will be a sleight of hand dharma, incapable of holding you back. If you do not resist sleight of hand dharmas, then no matter what may come, you will not be hindered. If you are capable of not resisting transformations, then no matter what may happen, you will have nothing to repent of. Resisting transformations. Well, when you sincerely read this kind of stuff, you know, you don't get it into your mind that you're enlightened. You get in a kind of, wow, you know, it's possible to become enlightened. Question. The sutra says, walking on pathlessness, one comprehends the path of the Buddhas. What does this mean? Answer. Walking on pathlessness is to reject neither names nor characteristics. For the one who has comprehended, names are nameless, and characteristics are characteristicless. It also says, one who walks on pathlessness rejects neither covetousness nor craving. For the one who has comprehended, covetousness is covetless, and craving is cravingless. When walking on pathlessness, suffering is sufferingless, and pleasure is pleasureless, and this is called comprehension. To reject neither birth nor death is called comprehension. When walking on pathlessness, birth is birthless, and yet one does not seize birthlessness. Ego is egoless, and yet one does not seize egolessness. This is called comprehending the path of the Buddhas. If you can attain to the realization that negation is negationless, and yet not seize negationlessness, then it is called comprehending the path of the Buddhas. In summary, mind is no mind, and this is called comprehending the mind path. So we're seeing the impermanence of phenomena. Question, what is comprehending all dharmas? What is comprehending all phenomena, all situations, all places, all experiences, all things? Question, what is comprehending all dharmas? Answer, when in the midst of things you do not give rise to views, it is called comprehension. Comprehension means not engendering thought in relation to things, not engendering covetousness for things, and not engendering defilements in connection with things. When forms are formless, it is called comprehending forms. When existence is existenceless, it is called comprehending existence. When birth is birthless, it is called comprehending birth. When dharma is dharma-less, it is called comprehending dharma. No matter what he meets, no matter what she meets, she directly comprehends. This person's wisdom eye is open. No matter what may come, she is incapable of seeing differences or sameness in characteristics. This is called comprehension. And the very interesting point, question, what is comprehending all phenomena? What is comprehending all dharmas? What is comprehending all things? What is understanding all things? When in the midst of things you do not give rise to views, it is called comprehension. So stop clinging to and making up views about what you're experiencing. Well, everybody, it's my bedtime coming up pretty soon. Oh, how wonderful. Deep bow to Shelley. That's wonderful. So I'm going to go to the sleepy time Katina and walk through the world of dreaming. And you all have all my pure love and kindness and consideration. So I wish you all the good luck on your path, and I hope everything's going well for you, and I hope that you can make a positive impact on somebody else's life today, even if it's a small one, because if we're not helping others, then we better be helping ourselves. All right? Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.